Thank you everyone for joining this discussion. I am Justin Goldston. Just very quickly, in the Web2 world, I'm a professor at Penn State University, as well as an advisory board member at Georgetown University. In the Web3 world, we are democratizing education by building a university in the metaverse with SydTek DAO. It's going to be a university for the people, by the people. So this discussion is going to cover, the transition from Web 2 to Web 3 and change the mindset for individuals and organizations. So we have a very esteemed panel, and I look forward to this discussion. So very quickly, could you all introduce yourselves, talk about your organizations, talk about your projects? I just want to start with Zach.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. My name is Zach Burks. I'm the founder of Mintable. Mintable is a NFT platform. Allows for anyone to create NFTs, also trade, buy, sell NFTs. We're known for quite a few things, and we're quite large. We have over 1 million users. We've done millions in volume. About a month ago, we checked. We had about 2.5, 2.6 million NFTs created on the platform. And we support Ethereum, IMX, and soon XRP. So that's a little bit about us.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Brian?
Oh, hi. Yeah, glad to be here. I'm Brian. I call myself an internet veteran in past 20 years. I have experienced the internet quite a lot from Silicon Valley to other part of the world. So I entered blockchain NFT world since 2018, because that's the time, not too early, but not too late. So that's the time I found that's the pretty good solution for us to enable the business for the next generation of the internet. Currently, I'm running on my startup called Uptick Network. It is, we try to build a business-grade NFT infrastructure to enable the NFT business for the next. So which include the infrastructure part and then marketplace part, and also an open platform to support any type of NFT applications to run on top of that. Yeah, I'd love to share more today.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Cedric, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Cedric. I'm head of business development of a KuCoin community chain in the North and South America region. And I came from a background of public policy and international relations. And for us, KuCoin Community Chain, we are a chain built by fans of KuCoin and KCS, which is our governance token. We are a decentralized public chain and EVM compatible. And right now, we have already onboarded even though we are quite young, but we have already onboarded 70 plus projects deployed on us. And also we have more than 470 wallet addresses on our chain.
Yeah, thank you for that. And finally, Anderson.
Thank you for having me. I'm the CEO of Chains.com. That is focused on providing a different experience from C5 different users, the product, the chain, like any account. We have just over half of users in currently deployed first products. So self I've been in space since that's the word we have. Israel.
Excellent. Anderson, can you turn your sound up a little bit? It's a little difficult. If it's not, if it's just me, just let me know.
Sure. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, that's better now. I like that. All right, so yeah, we're going to stay with you on this discussion, in that we're still, even with the current market conditions, we're still hearing a lot of discussion in the topic of Web3. So devs are still doing something. So Anderson, what's your view on Web3 in the current state, and where do you think it's going to go in the future?
First of all, I think the conditions are actually amazing. This winter is definitely the best winter yet, especially for someone who's seen the crashes of 2015-14, which was a winter that had no particular end and little promise for the industry. Obviously, the hangover that came after the ICOs of 2017, that basically had no fundamentals, and we saw literally projects collapse within 18 months, which triggered another huge winter, which saw very little capital deployment and very few kind of successes, but the successes that were born during the winter of 2019 and 20, they were basically the best companies of the recent bull run. I think that right now we will see a lot of companies with great fundamentals that have raised capital from their companies and that are entirely focused on building. I think we're going to see a lot of amazing products, specifically in Web3 space. Web3 space right now consists of DeFi, the gaming industry, which obviously is play to earn, anything that is NFT and metaverse integrated, DAOs, which is a huge and untapped potential, and basically services that enable direct connection to the user's wallet, which is both cryptocurrencies and NFTs. And I think we'll see further democratization of both kind of access to financial tools and even business activity. And I think right now we're also seeing more certainty in regulations. If 2017, 2018 were chaos and huge uncertainty for anyone participating in the market, there are now more and more jurisdictions that provide certainty about what it means to build a company in that particular jurisdiction and what it means for the users. So I think that there's a huge promise in terms of what Web3 can do for both businesses and users. And I think the biggest potential still lies in DeFi, which is about making sophisticated financial products available to retail users. That's one thing. Another huge aspect is anything that has to do with NFTs, and most importantly, intellectual rights tied to NFTs. I think the music industry and basically any monetizable intellectual property is going to really explode. I really like conversations with sophisticated markets for music, for videos, where people can trade ownership of monetizable intellectual property. And I think this is going to be playing a big part in the metaverse, because the metaverse is essentially an environment that provides enforceability and intellectual rights. So if in the past, let's say you own rights to a song, you relied on entities like RIAA and MPAA for enforcement of your intellectual property. On the other hand, if you have NFTs that are tied to either movie or music rights, and you are utilizing those NFTs in a metaverse environment, the metaverse ensures the enforceability of those that intellectual property. And I think that's going to make a significantly more sophisticated and more fluid market. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the breeze, and I think that the next bull run is going to be far more fundamental based than the previous
one. Excellent. Thank you for that. And you brought up a good point in terms of regulation. I want to get to that before we run out of time. So Brian, what's your thoughts on the current state and future state of Web3?
Yeah. So well, I think it's definitely we're still in the very early stage of Web 3.0 because people are still debating what's the clear definition for that. But in my view, we are in kind of like a river of no return. So that's the trend we're working towards that. So this actually bring me back to my old days, right? So in 98, 99. So that was the first bubble period of internet in Silicon Valley. So we experienced a similar period, right? Bubbles and a lot of crazy stuff, and not really useful cases. But that's all belong to the early stage of something, right? So that's why I'm pretty optimistic to that. But then diving into the details, then we can see it really means something real to us, because in Web 3.0, this direction, it means a better framework that we can protect our property, privacy, right? And also bring with a very strong and trustless technology infrastructure to hold it. So at the same time, especially with the blockchain, and then NFT as a foundation blocks be part of that. It means the future of commerce, social, and maybe economy models are building to this the brand new system, which is a natural evolution of our human society and also technology world. So that's why I'm pretty optimistic to that. But on the other side, I also want to say, don't have too high expectation at this stage that people want to see very sexy use cases. It might not happen, because in this stage, the infrastructure are still being built, right? So there's a lot of components are moving forward in parallel. So that's why we need to have patience to waiting for that. Maybe at this stage, I will see more simple and practical use cases will happen, but more complicated cases will happen maybe a little bit later when the infrastructure become a little bit mature. Yeah, but so in general, I'm pretty optimistic to that. That means great opportunity for the industry.
Yeah. Yep. And I love your project, because the infrastructure is one of the big things that are currently needed in the current state. And you're providing the tooling, you're bringing the tools to the gold rush. So I'm very excited on what your project is going to build out. Cedric, what's your thoughts on where we are in terms of Web3 and where we're going?
Yeah, I think echoing what Brian was saying, like we're at the very early stage on the road to Web3. So I think to us right now, maybe we want to look at a lot of things like Web 2.5, meaning a lot of integrations in terms of consumer apps or video games that really can onboard a lot of Web 2 users to Web 3, and that create meaningful use cases for them. And I think potentially, maybe in future, like the majority of the world's crypto transactions, they won't happen on crypto exchanges, but in actual embedded apps, like consumer apps, things like things that we use to shop, or things we use to do gaming. So yeah, that's what I think the future of crypto would be like in the near future. And also fundamentally, I think for Web3, I believe in Web3 because Web2 only brings us the ease of exchanging data, but I think Web3 actually bring us true ownership of the data, and we can actually trade out data. So I have a very firm belief in the future of Web3, and I think right now at this stage, I really want to look at a lot of projects that like consumer apps and video games that can onboard the next big influx of users. And of course, infrastructure is important because that supports these the possibility of these applications.
Excellent. And I like how you pointed out the whole concept of Web 2.5. That's one thing I've always been, thinking about and talking about. And people argue in that, Meta could be considered Web 2.5, because I can say that that's a progressive decentralization model. They're never going to be decentralized, in my opinion. Those are my thoughts. But yeah, I think that, you hit the nail on the head in that there needs to be an on-ramp to the masses, and I think that, this phase of Web 2.5 is going to be that. So Zach, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think what Cedric was talking about is kind of point on and talking the next wave of where we're going. I mean, if we go back where we've, kind of come from over the last few years, it's been pretty crazy to think of. Let's go with NFTs because I know NFTs best. CryptoKitties starting out as essentially the intro for almost everyone into what NFTs are and to where we're at now. The amount of money that is in the space, the amount of activity that we've seen in the space. But yeah, Brian and Cedric both talked about we're early, and we are early. There's about 4 to 5 million NFT users on Ethereum right now. That's about it. But when you look at the actual chart, the graph mimics the same slope and growth rate of the internet and the adoption of the internet over the last 30 years. And we're still very early on. So, that's really promising. And so, yeah, Web 2.5, you're talking about Meta. That's really interesting. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Meta is almost acting as this gateway for the masses in an environment where it's not very easy for new people to come on board. And that's kind of like what we're trying to do is focus on these, not the 5 million people that we already have, but the, potentially 7 billion people that we can still reach. Now, how we do that is going to be different than how other companies do that. And only in time will tell over the next, I would say next few years, we're going to really find out. But I think NFTs will play a very important role. And I think NFTs are, I always like to bring this back to my mom. If you try to stop and talk to my mom about Bitcoin or DeFi or anything like that, it's going to go right over her head. She's not going to listen to you. She's going to say, what are you talking about? But if you talk to her about something like trading baseball cards or artwork or music, she can relate and understand that. And I think that this is where NFTs are really powerful. And I think this is where you get, there's always going to be options, derivatives, and all these complicated financial instruments that a very small subset of people can utilize on like Wall Street and advanced traders. But the average everyday person doesn't deal with it. And I think NFTs is the crypto equivalent to the everyday introduction. So super, super excited for the next few years for NFTs.
Yeah, thank you for that. So whenever we're talking about, the metaverse and we're talking about Meta, so whenever Zuckerberg made the announcement, I was actually in my office doing my office hours, and they made the announcement, and then I went into the classroom to my students, undergraduate students. I had 2 classes that day. I went to my undergraduate students. I said, did y'all hear about the Meta announcement? And the college kid said, Facebook's for old people. We're not going to use that. So to that point, the students, this younger generation, they're interested in Web3. And they're digging into Web3, and because they're familiar with Minecraft and Roblox, right? They're going to be the main builders of the metaverse, right? So I'm just, framing it from a metaverse perspective right now. So they're actually providing the tools, they're providing the knowledge to our generation, right? So given that, they may be the builders, they may be paving the path for Web3, what's your thoughts on that in terms of entrepreneurs, in terms of CEOs, in terms of founders, where, we have this younger generation that will have different perspectives, and they may be thinking about things that we're not thinking about, so Brian, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think, no matter what age we are, but we need to live in the current market and the trend, right? So that's the way to stay young forever. It doesn't matter with the age. So at this moment, I think it's very important to learn what is decentralization about. So may bring a lot of common topics and the common grounds with a younger generation or even some open-minded older generation. In my view, metaverse, Web3. So because I'm more focused on the blockchain and the NFT, I think that's the fundamental blocks to enable that. And also talk about decentralization. It's not just about the technology itself. So we're talking about mindset. It also involved with the operation model, which also should consider the decentralization, which is a community-based model, right? Then we need to talk about how to make money. So because of the nature of a blockchain and NFT, we can build into economy model into that. That's also different from our traditional model, where we can also call it a decentralized business model. So with 3 layers, technology, operation, and the business model, that's the full mindset we need to have in order to communicate with the current generation, because they will grow up in such environment, so they don't have such boundary that we had before. So in basic, so we need to recognize, right, this is the age that you own your data and you own your asset. And also, of course, you own your business. So that's the framework we need to talk about and to live with any type of generation together. Yeah, that's what I think.
I like that. Instead of a tech stack, we have a Web3 implementation stack.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use that. You didn't try that one yet. I like that. Cedric, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think because I haven't been into crypto for too long yet. So I think first of all, for me, I felt like it's really important for us to be willing to take risks and also make mistakes. And because there are not many set rules in the industry that we can follow, so we have to innovate. And on the other hand, I do feel that we need to always keep a learner's mindset. And because the industry is so fast growing, and there are so many new talents joining, so I felt like we not only need to have to learn from those who built Web3 before us, but also we have to learn from new talents and new innovations.
Thanks for that. And I think that, always learning is one thing that has led to the demise for a number of organizations. When I said in a talk, years ago, if you don't adjust, if your external environment is changing quicker than your internal environment, your company is doomed. This quote of the late great Jack Welch, and you don't want to get blockbustered, you don't want to get clubhoused, if you're familiar with Clubhouse. So that's going to be one thing that's going to be very interesting as we evolve into this Web3 space. So Anderson, what's your thoughts on this younger generation disrupting, the current business landscape?
Yeah, I just must say absolutely. There is no playback to this. A lot of projects may want to present a 3 or 4 year roadmap. At the end of the day, it's the projects that are capable of continuously adapting to the market. They are the ones that are going to win. And if up until now we got to a place where we have 120 million active users in this industry, people who are transacting cryptocurrencies or NFTs, the assessment is around 120 million users. I could say that most of those users are technologists, at least to an extent. They appreciate the technology that is behind the blockchain, and they took some time to kind of learn it. We cannot expect the next 900 million users that we want to onboard into this ecosystem, which will take us to get to 1 billion users. We cannot expect the next 900 million users to be technologists. It's just that simple. The people that we've onboarded so far are going to be drastically different from the people that we're going to onboard in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that means that we need to build products that behave differently, and we need to learn how to communicate about those products in an entirely different way. Just like people do not think of Facebook as a PHP company just because it is built on a lab stack, we must not talk about NFTs and cryptocurrencies as first and foremost blockchain products, and then kind of assume that people are going to care about learning what the blockchain is. We need to learn to build products and communicate those products in non-technological, in non-tech ways, and learn how to onboard users who do not care about the underlying technology. And I think this is going to be kind of the key for success in kind of in the next cohort of winners, the next cohort of great companies that are capable of really onboarding those non-technological users.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And that goes back to, the infrastructure and tooling, similar to what Brian's building out, and that, the onboarding is going to be very, very important. And I think that, those front ends we still have, although like you said, we're technologists, so we can get it. But the front ends, I think that, we still have a ways to go to kind of get the masses into it. And you have an excellent point in that, the ultimate goal is to create these websites, create these tools where you don't even know you're on a blockchain, right? So, or you're interacting with the blockchain, I should say. So that's an excellent point. And so finally, Zach, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's each one of you guys are going through different points that I have as well. So we're all quite aligned here. But to talk on some of these things, you're talking about the front end. And Anderson, you brought up the next 900 million people are going to be different. You're absolutely right. They're going to be different, and it's all based off of that front end interaction. The problem is we're limited because of either regulation or lack of regulation in some instances, where we want to do something or make something easier, but we can't. And this is unfortunate. So to answer the question more directly, you talk about the next generation is kind of paving the business landscape. I think one of the ways that we deal with this, one, being a pretty young guy myself, I don't feel too disconnected, but we do try to build for the current landscape, but in a vague manner. So launching new features is one thing, but launching new features that could potentially be used in multiple different ways, more than what you just imagined, I think is really important. There's been a lot of things that we've shipped over the years that we thought were not going to be important or were going to be very minute, but ultimately ended up being used a lot and were very important. And this just goes to show that you don't necessarily know what's going to be received or get product market fit. So because of that, you got to be agile, but you also need to be able to build something with a vision that can be vague enough that it can be used in alternative ways or easily pivoted to an alternative system in some capacity. And that allows to remove kind of that pain or friction of switching over, but also allows you to take advantage of a trend that you may not have anticipated. And so as you go about, like, we have this technology called Mintology. And Mintology is kind of its own company within Mintable. It's its own brand, and it builds for enterprise clients, very large Fortune 500 and multi-billion-dollar multinationals for NFTs. And the way that started was a solution that we built for our consumers on the marketplace. And ultimately, because it was a vague solution, it was very easily pivoted to something very valuable. And this is, I think, kind of, we have young people shaping the landscape. But one of the ways that you can respond to not just young people, but also just unforeseen trends is by doing something with a certain nature of that vagueness. So.
Excellent. I like that. Nice shirt, by the way. Ape Gang. So we talked about what what we see from an external environment, but based on what you're seeing at this given point in time, yes, we said that, yes, there's a consensus that we're still early, but given what you've seen so far, we'll start with Cedric. How has your mindset changed with the Web3 movement? And I want to kind of, because whenever I think of Web3, I think that that's a convergence of just not blockchain, but multiple technologies. I think of it's the integration of the Internet of Things. It's also artificial intelligence. You can also say edge computing. I'm not even going to talk about quantum computing. Still think we're years away from that. But if we look at Web3 from a integration of these tools, Cedric, what's your thoughts on how your approaches, how your mindset has evolved with that?
Yeah, I think personally, on a more personal level, I think I felt like I became a lot more altruistic after joining Web3, because I think this is an industry that's full of startups and new ideas. So in order to grow those with a team, you have to be altruistic, and you have to change your mindset to be like that in order to succeed. So for example, for KuCoin community chain, KCC like us, we support projects on our ecosystem, incubate them without, you cannot like consider like how much you are getting back before doing that, because you want those ideas to happen. And also it's how we work with our team members as well. Be altruistic is something that I felt like, being in the Web3 industry, that you have to have that personality. And the other thing is, I think maybe be truthful and critical. I felt like because we want to, because this industry, we want to solve a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of things that was not working. So you cannot always follow the establishment. So you have to think fundamentally, and also rather than following what's already worked or what's already there. So that's two things that I think my mindset, personally, my mindset really changed after joining the Web3.
Thanks for that. Brian, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I really agree. So I think in order to work in Web3 and be even a driving force to push the Web3 forward, we do need to have a right mindset with that. Especially the open mindset, right? So currently, I think there's two directions people are working on that. So one is from the crypto native, or I would say Web3 native part. We try to do something new, to do something very creative. So that's one thing we're experiencing. So right now, this requires a true believer and entrepreneurship to do that. Otherwise, you cannot break the border. But on the other side, we cannot just play in our own circle. We need to break it and penetrate into general public. So that's why we also need to, even myself, talking to myself, I need to step one step back to think about how to help the current industry to go through such transformation, maybe from 2.5 to 3. So in our practice, so we're talking about NFT. So I always say, there's NFT represents all type of unique digital assets. It's not just artworks, collectibles. So that's why we define the collectible NFTs and also functional or utility NFTs. So that's will cover a lot. But they probably in the collectible NFTs, it will be more Web3 native. We can play a lot based on that. But on the functional utility NFTs, actually we can help the traditional business to build a bridge from the current business model into the new one. So that's something we're practicing. Especially I see a huge potential on the, I would say, utility or functional NFT, like a ticket, right? A membership card, loyalty, a lot of things. So that's the whole new world that we need to explore and we need to make it happen. So that's why I think in our mindset, no matter we are doing the Web3 native or we are building bridge for Web 2.5. So the same mindset is we need to be pretty open and we need to be entrepreneurship and we need to be creative, right? And also we need to be the risk taker. So that's the spirit we need to have, and then probably create some great opportunities for the future.
Thanks for that. Yeah, you make a point in terms of the utility for NFTs, because I think we only scratched the surface of that. In that I think that the NFTs, I think Anderson mentioned within the music industry and things like that. And I see a bigger opportunity in the finance industry, insurance industry, supply chain, for NFTs and having true utility. So I'm super excited about NFTs in the Web 2 world, if you will, and having those organizations transition over. So Zach, what's your thoughts?
So the question was, how has my mindset changed? That's kind of a hard question for me to answer. I've been in crypto since 2012. So it's been a long time for me, and seeing my mindset change is hard to quantify. I'll tell you that there is something that I believe strongly in, which is actually, Brian, you put these into two categories. You said crypto native in one. And as you were describing, you were kind of describing me and how I'm going to reply on this response, which is you actually need to uphold Satoshi's vision as a founder in some capacity to be able to understand that you're building and you're laying bricks on a road and a path that is literally the history in the making, and you're making it. And if you choose to build a bridge, or if you go left or you go right, you're literally the reason that the road is bending. So you have to have some sort of morals and guidance at a fundamental level. And I think those can be summed up into a few things. And that's why I brought up Satoshi, because their core beliefs behind Bitcoin and really Satoshi's grand, ideas when he created it, which is essentially 1, decentralization, 2, being your own bank, 3, the right to a freedom around your currency, not to be limited by unjust regulations, at least in my American mind, and then some general privacy around the user and anonymity, and these things are really important for the idea behind cryptocurrency to succeed as it was laid out. Now, in reality, there's some things that we're not going to get by, which is fully anonymous wallets, most likely. It's just too easy for us not to have that. And therefore, in the coming years, we probably won't have fully anonymous wallets in some capacity. Or if you do, it's illegal in some way. And that's unfortunate, but you've got to try as a founder to do your best. And so I think my personal mindset is obviously to have those as a moral foundation, and then to be guided by those morals. And there's a few other personal morals I have, but I think being guided by your morals is something that's really important.
Thank you for that. And I think that's the big thing. And I think that, I think we're going to see, so yeah, guided by the morals is a big thing, especially in this space. I think that transparency is one thing that's much needed, not just in the Web3 world we're in now, but like I said, in other industries, such as like supply chain industry, where blockchain could provide that transparency. But, you brought up an interesting topic of being your own bank. And I think that that's one thing that we could lead to onboarding people, because if you explain to someone DeFi, and you explain to someone that you can borrow against an 8, borrow against a JPEG, they're like, wait, what? Right? But I think that once people understand it, it's all about the education, in my opinion. I think once people understand it, I think that we'll get more adoption. I think that, once we explain it to the regulators, then the institutional investors and then the organizations will come in. I think that's going to be huge. So a lot of people are against regulation. I think we need it so that we can get those masses in here and those large organizations in. Anderson, what's your thought?
Yeah. So, I mean, it has to be kind of a philosophical question and answer as to how kind of the industry changed me and how I perceive things. And I was extremely fortunate to kind of be involved in this industry since 2011. And I was part of a group of academics that were mining Bitcoin in these wooden rigs with NVIDIA cards. And also at some point, we saw projects like Color Coins and Mastercoin appear And then eventually I ran into Vitalik's basement here in Tel Aviv in 2015, and he was showing us Solidity before the Ethereum ICO. This is kind of part of the roadshow. And to me, one of the things that I kind of saw specifically in this industry after being a decade in it, I saw that amazing projects fail, but at the end of the day, amazing people persist. Basically, a person who is great will persist over a long period of time, over multiple projects, over an entire decade, and they can carry huge systems such as Ethereum basically on their backs to a degree. And projects that have had better fundamentals on paper, better teams, better overall, end of the day, they fail because they lack this one amazing, there's a gaming term called carry. Basically, the person who carries the team on the back and end of the day persists for many, many years. And I think like this is the case definitely in this industry. Like we've seen time and time again, people just carry the project on the back and make it a success, even when they're competing with an entire free market with possibly stronger fundamentals. And that kind of really taught me to look for these people that are capable of carrying amazing projects. The other thing that really kind of the industry taught me is that, it's a very young industry. It doesn't have a legacy. It doesn't have these monolithic kind of systems that people tend to adhere to, that they tend to follow. You get into virtually any other industry, and there's a huge body of work. There's like specialist people who define what the right way of doing things is. And it doesn't really exist in the blockchain space, because the best business practices 4 years ago, the best code practices 4 years ago, they are no longer relevant today. So kind of the pragmatic way of operating in this industry is always looking at where the ball is today in terms of best practices and where the ball is going to be a year from now, and based on that. So in this particular industry, there's less weight to legacy. There's less weight to that one guy that spent 7 or 8 years building business, because you're saying, okay, the guy that actually been working for the past 3 months building things is very likely to be more valuable than the guy that was working for 8 years, because his knowledge is more on point, is more relevant, and we should act on that. And I absolutely love it. It leaves less space for biases. It basically leaves only space for talkers.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So we're running out of time. We're running out of time in this discussion. So just very quickly, in about 30 seconds, please give your takeaways or your calls to action into how users can begin to transition from Web 2 to Web 3 or Web 2.5, however you want to put it. Start with Cedric.
Yeah, I think if you have new ideas, it's really a good time to join this revolution to getting into Web3. So contact any ventures or mainnets like us, KCC KuCoin Community Chain. We can help you your ideas to grow and succeed. Anything else? I think be innovative, and yeah, there are a lot of resources that you can use. This industry, I think, is super supportive about new ideas. So just go ahead and make it happen.
Yeah, and then also everyone, just let the audience know where they can find you and your projects.
Yeah. Should I mention my website?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just go to kcc.io or send an email to Cedric.Shan at flsdex.com. Yeah, and give us an email or showcase what your project is working on. We would like to support.
Thanks for that. Brian?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, actually, today's talk make me remember an old phrase we had in old days in Microsoft. We call it practical magic, right? So that's something I really want to say. So for most people, see, we are building something magic, Web3. They don't really understand. But at the same time, I believe this group of people, we belong to the pioneer group of this Web3. So we need to be more practical to build the bridge, build the infrastructure. And also NFT is part of the asset layer in the infrastructure. So in my view, those are very important. So for those people who want to build their new business or transform their current business into Web3, they also need to be very careful choosing the right platform, right infrastructure. So that's the only way can make a success case and also make it sustainable. Right, in my view, so this is really important at this stage. Don't rush to something you don't understand and then you're not sure. But just step by step, you will see the lights. So in my project, we call it Uptick Network. So uptick.network. So you can also contact me at Brian Shan, XIN. Brian Shan is my Twitter handle. So yeah, just reach me. I'm pretty open to talk to anybody who wants to do the NFT-based ecosystem applications. Because I think marketplace is only the place to trade, but a lot of value stored in the ecosystem application, right? Like music, video, a ticket. So that's the huge area we need to focus on. When we have more ecosystem NFT application, we can see more blooming marketplace happening. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Zach?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. You can follow us on Twitter, Mintable_app. You can find us at Mintable.com. If you're trying to create an NFT and you're just an artist, you go to Mintable. If you're trying to sell your NFTs, you go on Mintable. If you're a business or you're starting something around NFTs and you need to do a lot of NFTs and you want to stay on Ethereum, then we have a solution for you through Mintology, where we work with a lot of publicly listed companies and things like that. That you can find at Mintology.app. So yeah, reach out to us and contact us if you guys have any questions.
Excellent, excellent. Finally, Anderson.
So first, it's kind of the question: what does anyone that wants to invest in Web3? What should they start? What should they explore? I still think that the best way of starting with Web3 is kind of this book that's showing and Bitcoin. Basically, if you learn about Bitcoin first, and if you invest in Bitcoin first, I will show the book properly. But if you learn about Bitcoin specifically first, and getting your first piece of Bitcoin and understanding how you got it, and how you can store it, and how you can send it, that's going to change your life forever. Because this is the first time you've actually owned money. This is the first time that nobody can take that. And I think only after you've, at least to a degree, mastered how to use Bitcoin, then you can start learning about other projects. And then you understand how they are different from Bitcoin. But I think getting your first piece of Bitcoin and understanding how it works is going to change your life forever. And from that point, you'll be curious about everything else. And you'll have mental tools that you haven't had before. So that's basically going out to anyone who was interested in Web3. I think that will be the way to start. And you can find more about us on chains.com. Welcome to visit us. We'll see our social channels there. Join our community. If you feel like contacting me directly, I am Anderson at chains.com.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That concludes this discussion. Thank you everyone that participated in this panel. And I'll hand it back over to Jenny. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Zach, Cedric, Anderson, and Brian. Really enjoyed this panel. Thank you for your time. Let's keep in touch. Look forward to more achievements from each of you. Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.